So, welcome again, everyone. I'm Stella, the Partnerships Director here at Forward Action. We have Florence with us today, a Partnerships Officer. She will be in the background making sure that everything works well. I'll introduce you to our speakers in a moment. For those of you who don't know us, we are a digital mobilization agency that works with charities, nonprofits, and progressive causes to help them grow their power and impact through digital. And we do this in different ways. Primarily, we work with our partners to develop and roll out digital strategies, campaigns, and propositions that grow their audiences, deepen engagement with these audiences, and drive action, ultimately impact. So that can be through raising money, campaigning, ideally both, and ideally everything really that is meaningful and impactful for our partners. We're always keen to hear about new ideas you have, challenges that you're dealing with. So please do get in touch. We'll share our contact details in the chat in a moment. Yes, we're always happy to have a chat. And let's move on to our talk. A few of us attended the UK and Ireland Digital Benchmark Study yesterday. I'm sure some of you will have done so as well. Our friends at Raleigh run this with MNR. And the data basically confirmed what we've been kind of hearing from talking to charities over the last few months, that online fundraising is generally struggling a little bit. The total online revenue declined by about 2% compared to the previous year. And I think it's tempting to hold on to this kind of top line stat and decide that maybe, it's time to stop investing a lot in digital. I know that budgets are really tight, targets are still very high, especially the kind of expectations around Christmas are always really high. But the detailed picture is actually much more nuanced, much more interesting. There's lots of shifts happening in the digital space that create opportunities across channels, across tactics, and lots of different creative approaches. There's a lot to get excited about. And I think today's talk will demonstrate that it's really not at all about whether we should continue fundraising online. It's very much about how we do it. We need to be strategic, we need to be intentional, and really pay attention to kind of the data and prioritize what we invest in. We have two wonderful speakers with us today who will tell you more about what you can and should do to have a brilliant Christmas appeal this year. We have Ali, who's Forward Action's co-chief executive, and Anya, our brilliant head of creative. Both of them have worked across countless Christmas appeals with our partners, when they both still worked at charities. They've spent the last few weeks digging through a lot of data, both our own here at Forward Action and kind of looking at wider sector trends to really help you focus your appeal planning on what matters most. So I will hand over to them in just one moment. Before I do that, a couple of housekeeping things as usual. This session will be recorded. We will send you a link to the recording probably sometime early next week, but you will receive a link to that in your inbox with a couple of other useful things, hopefully, as well. At the bottom of your screen, you should be able to enable closed captions if that's useful to you. And also at the bottom of your screen, there's a Q&A box. Please do use that throughout to ask any questions you have. It really helps us to have all the questions in one place because we kind of bring them all together and ask them at the end. Do continue to use the chat just to kind of talk to each other, share reflections. That's always really nice. And if you have any tech issues, just let us know either in the chat or you can message us hosts directly as well, and we will look into that for you. Right. I will now hand over to Anya, and Florence and I will turn our cameras off so that we don't distract you. And yeah, thank you. Over to Anya.
Thanks so much, Stella. Thank you for the introductions. And thank you so much to everyone for joining us this morning as well and being willing to hear about Christmas and signing up for this when it's been so sunny. It's quite rainy where I am today, which makes us all feel a bit better and easier to talk about. But we're really hoping this session can turn some of your zero Christmassy feelings into maybe like a mid-5, maybe for July. That might be a good place to be. Ali and I are super excited to bring you our Christmas Come Early webinar. And we'll be saying this again and again as kind of our key message that you really need to start prepping your Christmas campaigns right now in July, ideally, if you haven't already. And with that in mind, we thought we'd start with a quick poll actually to see where everyone is at on their Christmas campaigns. There's no wrong answers at all. We're just gonna pop up a quick Zoom poll and ask you all, whether you've started working on your Christmas campaign. So there should be a little pop-up on your screen for you to vote on. No wrong answers at all. Maybe you're at the place where, yeah, it's all planned out. You did it at your wrap-up for 2024, which would be very organised. Perhaps more of you've started, but there's still lots left to do. And it's absolutely fine, but you might not have started at all yet. This might be your first foray into Christmas 2025, but you're going to go and start straight after this webinar. That's totally fine as well. We'll give you all a few seconds to vote, and it'll be really interesting to see where everyone is at. Hopefully, yeah, it gives you all a sense of how other organisations are working, how everyone's panning out. Wonderful. Okay, we've got some answers. It looks like most of you that you're started, and there's still lots to do. 3%, two of you have already planned it all out. Amazing. I'd love to hear more about your campaigns. But for lots of you, 40% as well, that you're not yet started yet, but you're hoping to do so straight after this webinar, which is really exciting because the fact is 50% of the public say that they always donate to charity over the festive period, which is significantly higher than the third of people that kind of give throughout the rest of the year. So people are feeling so primed and ready to give at this time of year. And it's really up to you to be ready to motivate them to give to your cause in particular. And wherever you're at in your planning, we're here to help today. We've put together a truly festive session filled with easy to action advice, including what makes 2025 different, what can we learn from 2024 campaigns and data, and what you can kind of run from this webinar to start doing now to get ahead. Ali's made you a slick 6-point checklist so you'll know exactly where you're headed, as well as time for any questions. So as Stella said, do add questions into the Q&A section on Zoom. We'll be collating them behind the scenes and we'll try and answer some at the end. But first, to help you get into the festive mood, for people who voted 1 on the Christmas scale, we thought we'd ask a question of what would John Lewis do? Because here's another fact for you. John Lewis has likely already filmed their Christmas ad. They're done and dusted. They start planning in January, they script it in spring, and they're probably in the edit now. And this advanced planning that they do means they spend time answering a really key question that we want to get into, which is, what is the right ad for this year, for 2025? Because context really is key. And to help show you what we mean, I just want to take you on a quick trip down memory lane, again, maybe helping you feel a bit more festive, to talk about what the trends have been over the last 20 years of Christmas ads. So I'm going to whisk you back first to the 2010s, because this is when the big budget Christmas ad was born. John Lewis first started doing this, and their goal back then, these are some ads from that time, was to make us cry. They just wanted to, make us pull at our heartstrings. Their ads were cinematic, emotionally resonant. They're often centered around children, animals, and they tapped into a universal emotional core that we were all really ready to feel, and everyone kind of shared in that heartbreak. But skip ahead to 2015s, and we'd all run out of tissues. Basically, the tearjerkers had gone too hard, competing to break our hearts. We all couldn't be made sad anymore. And disruption was the key thing they wanted to do. How could you be the most unexpected, zany, surreal? Think CGI, made up monsters, characters, flash mobs, anything a bit weird. And that was how they were going to have cut through. And that was right for the time. But then 2020 came around, you may remember that year perhaps, and political awareness grew, public mood shifted with COVID, cost of living crisis, and ads began incorporating social impact themes. They couldn't have done what they did in 2015 in this year, it would have just landed all a bit wrong. So things like loneliness, poverty, food insecurity, kindness to strangers, these were the key themes. They wanted to make us smile and feel a bit better in the situation, but in a way that didn't feel too jarring. And sometimes they don't hit the mark too. Sometimes they don't do this, but yeah, thinking about how things have changed as the years have gone by is really important. But in 2025, we thought it was a good question of what will they need to do different? What would they do that would land well? And we're not fortune tellers, sadly. We don't have access to the John Lewis creative offices, but we could make some predictions here at Forward Action. And then we're going to ask you to vote on what your predictions are too. And maybe we'll remember to get back together in November and all see whether we were right and whether we predicted what they were going to do next. So one question, perhaps they could go big on user-generated content, work with influencers, make authenticity absolutely key. Many studies have said that people listen to influencers now more than brands, with many organisations investing a significant proportion of their marketing spend in influencers, averaging about 40%. So hearing from real people about what they think, feel, what they recommend could be a real way to stand out as people really kind of build relationships with these influencers. Perhaps I'll jump on the novelty of AI, as lots of people have been, but this could be the year that they really go hard on that and create something that's as much about the story of the ad creation and doing something really unexpected as it is about the end result. They could shock and surprise us with AI generated content that creates a real social media buzz and kind of stands out from the crowd. It's disruption in a way that feels like that's what disruption looks like in 2025. CGI isn't enough, you need to go into the AI world. They might go down that route. And finally, they might maybe look outside to the wider context of the world we're living in and know that the news is heavy right now, ongoing conflicts, slashing aid budgets, welfare cuts. Maybe these big budget people will sense the tone of the room and look for charitable partnerships with their big budgets. I really love this example from Norwich City Football Club. It was all about mental health. It had such a powerful message at the end. It harnessed emotions for all the right reasons. It got me to feel, it really stuck with me. Perhaps they'll go down that route. We just don't know. But we would love to give you a quick poll and see what you think. Again, no wrong answers at all. We just want to know what you think John Lewis will do next. So I'm giving you 4 options. Do you think the main thing will be they work with influencers? Do you think they're going to go big with AI? Are you hopeful they'll partner with charities? Maybe one's already partnered with one of you. That'd be exciting. Or something else completely. If you think it's something else completely, maybe you could share your big budget ad ideas in the chat so we can again check back in November and see if any of us were directly on the mark. So hopefully you can all give a little vote and see what you think. They think you might do. Maybe you'll get it right, exactly right. And we'll see what the answers are. So this WISE group has predicted, most of you are predicting they might go with AI. It's a good spread actually. Okay, we've perfectly spread across the 4 options. We've all hedged our bets, but yeah, maybe AI is the thing. I'll be super curious to see if anyone does go with that and if they can pull it off well. I tried to search for AI ads, I couldn't find any good ones, but maybe they will, Christmas is the time to pull out all the stops and do that. And personally, I'd love for charity partnerships to be back on the cards, obviously, and for ads to have a deeper meaning. But the key takeaway from all of this trip down memory lane, is that over the years, big brands haven't just put out the same thing again and again. And we can't do that either. We can't go out with the same thing again and again. They've responded to the context, which is so crucial for getting your Christmas campaign right, and especially in 2025. And I'm going to hand over to Ali now to talk more about exactly that and what all these trends mean for us.
Okay, thank you very much, Anya. So yeah, we're looking at what is it that makes this year different? And it's quite easy when you're kind of in the midst of our work to think that everything feels very the same, or change happens slowly when you're in it, and then suddenly you look back and things are very different. So first of all, we're going to look at the wider landscape, and then we'll look at some tech trends. But first off, I wanted to imagine, what would the Spectator or like a news magazine's cover for 2025 look like? And I asked AI to help me with this, and it got a bit lost with the Sgt. Pepper's reference, and that's why Keir and Nigel are wearing those jackets. But what I wanted to bring your attention to and think about is kind of, we're 7 months in, but we can already see what the narrative of the year is. It's a funny year. We've got the new Labour government that's now a year in, and it's proved that it's not so new. Its ideas and actions aren't that new. It feels very austerity, it feels very 2010 again. In America, we've got Trump 2.0, who's showing us that sequels are never better than the originals. And he's doing a lot worse there than we thought even was imagined was going to be happening. And so we're seeing a very negative news cycle around that. In the UK, support for reform is surging, and we hear that in all of the polls that come out. But it's really important to remember that actually Farage is still more reviled than admired. So 40% of people dislike him against 37% of people liking him in the latest YouGov polls. I mean, it's closer than anyone potentially would like to see, showing our political colours here. But obviously, there's a big shift in the landscape happening. And that is the news story that I think is shaping a lot of what's going on a political spectrum. And on a personal space, people are experiencing inflation. We're seeing the cost of living still plaguing us. And every report that comes out shows that giving is down. Online revenue, as Stella mentioned, for M&R benchmarks was down 2% last year. But every report that comes out, every sector report that comes out says that giving is down, giving is in decline. And it all feels very heavy and very relentless. And that is before we even look at the terrible state of the conflicts happening in Gaza and in Ukraine and further around the world. There's some really heavy things happening. But that's not the full story. There is signs of hope. So if we go on to next slide, these are 3 things that are giving me reason to be happy and cheerful, like hopeful. And what unites them is it's examples of people coming together around causes and uniting and showing that they still want to take action and become that beacon of hope. So for me, every week, there's thousands of people turning out to protests and rallies across the country. There's London rallies, but there's local ones happening. There's huge organizing happening to protest against the conflict in Gaza. And you see how that then translates into action with organizations like Co-op, with the members voting to boycott Israeli products. So there's organizing happening, and people are giving their time and turning up for things that they care about. And then when you look at this example from the Good Law Project, when there was a recent Supreme Court ruling about trans rights and gender, they put out a fundraising appeal and they raised up nearly £500,000 within a couple of weeks. It was an incredible outpouring of support. And it shows that, again, people want to take an action when they see something that is against their values or against what they believe the world should be, and they need an outpouring for that. And then the final example here is from Sense, and it was when the government was planning to cut the disability benefits. Sense and a whole load of different organizations, they formed a bit of a coalition, they all took action, they mobilized really quickly, and Sense got over 10,000 people to email their MP directly. As a result of all of the action and all of the public outcry and showing that it wasn't acceptable, there was a U-turn. And so the government had to change its decisions on that. And what this shows is that people still have power and people still want to use it. And in this age of misinformation and distrust, the charities that you work in, they represent some of the most trusted organizations and institutions in the country. Trust in charities is still higher than most other organizations and institutions. And so this Christmas could be an opportunity for you to become that beacon of hope for your communities and think about how do you kind of channel that hope and bring that opportunity together. So that's something we're really excited about in how we tell the stories of organizations this Christmas. That's the broader landscape. On the technical side of things, on the digital side of things, there are a few things that are changing. Like, it feels like a lot's the same. One thing that I'm really interested in is that AI is changing search. And we know that paid search is a crucial part of the fundraising picture at Christmas. So on yesterday's M&R benchmarks, the latest data, on average, 24% of media budget goes straight to search. And so it's got that one of the highest ROIs because there's a high intention behind it. So it's a really big and important part of a fundraising picture. But we know that it's changing and that AI is going to continue to change it. And it's gone from being something quite manual to something that's going to be very self-driving. And that is the ambition for Google. They want this whole thing to be like self-driving and automated, as Meta wants to do away with advertising agencies because they want it all to be automated as well. They're trying to give it all to the directly to the people who are setting these things up. So AI can now handle the bidding and the targeting and even write ad copy. So we need to shift from managing all of these different levers to making sure we're putting the right inputs into the machine for that learning and that what it's going to create. And what I'm seeing is really interesting is the kind of the search, the AI search functionality. So this is an example of who should I donate to this Christmas. Once upon a time, you would have had your sponsored ads coming up at the top, but now they've been pushed down because of this AI generated answer. And so it's going to push your search terms down. It's going to push that down. And we know that that's going to then be monetized because this is how these big platforms work. They're going to find the ways to then so that you can advertise within that. There will be new formats coming along where you can be part of that AI advertising landscape. But I think in 2025, it's a bit of a year of learning. And what we also see is these platforms want to get people using it before they then monetize it. So it might be that the sponsored ads don't appear there immediately. And this year is more about that kind of AI organic, which is a funny oxymoron, but the AI organic traffic, and then the advertising will come into there next year. Be interesting to see how that works and how that affects people's paid search results, because I think it's going to have a slight impact this year, but it's also something just to think about as we're planning our media budgets. And you maybe need to monitor the results that you're seeing a little bit more closely once the campaigns start. Okay. Next up is that we know that Meta ads are going to cost you more money because they keep costing more, because each year we see the costs going up. So we know that the ad spend peaks in Q4 across the sectors. So it's not just the charity sector. Across the board, everyone is flooding Meta with money. And we see that the CPMs really increase around that time. They're already up 11% year on year that we're seeing across sector reports. So CPMs are higher, which means it's costing more to get your advert shown to people. And that is before we get into the Christmas peak. So we're going to see higher costs per results. And there's sometimes we can't do anything about that. It's just that we have to recognize that in our budgeting and planning. Something that we can do and look at is actually how do you take advantage of that AI technology that Meta are pushing out. So at the moment, Meta has Advantage Plus. I don't know if anyone's already using it. We're testing it, and we're testing it with different partners and in different ways because kind of reluctant. We've seen sometimes it has a really positive boost on results. Sometimes it's not as much as you would see, or it can feel quite difficult to let go of the strategy in that way. So what it does is it uses the AI learning to optimize the placements and the creative and the budget. So it's going to help you get your campaign further if you test this and see that this is something that's actually going to work for you. It's going to make it harder for you to deliver that controlled test, but it will potentially help your budgets go further. So if you're doing your media buy yourself, look into that. If you're working with a media agency, I'm sure they're already talking to you about it. And when I asked about this, I found it hilarious that all of these men are scratching their chins thinking about, is this the right thing for us? Which is apparently a trope. So that is one thing to be aware of. The next thing in the broader digital tech landscape is that TV is connected. So again, if you're working with media agencies, you will already be hearing a lot about this, I'm sure. In the US, it's a hugely growing market. So again, M&R benchmark showed that the profits, the use of it grew by 70% year on year. In 2023, it wasn't a thing in America. In 2024, it was a big thing. When you look at the benchmarks data that came out yesterday, it wasn't a thing for us this year. But I think next year, like when they do the data again, we're going to see a similar level of growth. 86% of TV sets in the UK can watch TV online now. So the smart TV is embedded across the country. It is in pretty much everyone's homes. And so it's not necessarily the thing you think of when it comes to digital fundraising, but actually it's a great place to reach people. And what we mean is it's any TV content that can be streamed over the internet. So it's your ITVX or YouTube or Netflix or Amazon, and thinking about how connected TV, how your media fits into that. It's a great channel for doing this kind of beyond the normal DRTV, is because you can reach audiences that you can target more specifically. So you can target them not just based on what shows they're watching, but you have that targeting that we expect to see from digital advertising, but connected with that reach of a TV and people being there. It's great for brand building. It's great for awareness. It's not necessarily going to drive conversion, but we know that people are in a connected space. And so when they're watching these things, they will also be able to get online, to click, to follow QR codes and kind of build that journey. So it's a great place to start thinking about that journey. And like I say, we're seeing that charities in America are already doing this. So it's bringing a new way for you to bring your winter appeal to life. If perhaps TV budgets have been off the table for you because they're too big, the spend needed is too big, it could be something that you could dip your toe in and test if you have an innovation budget to try these things, and looking at how you could team up if you have brand budget as well, or marketing. So you can kind of build it out and bring it in earlier in the campaign to start building that awareness that then drives the kind of, you can build a pool to then go retarget. So that's something else that's going to be really interesting. And then the other thing, I feel like it's almost cliche to keep talking about influencers, but that's because they're really not going away. They're really essential in marketing and communications and fundraising strategies these days. And I don't know if anyone's got examples of where they've been using them brilliantly or where they've seen other people using them brilliantly. But I think it's a year that we really need to get smart about bringing our influencers into our campaign planning really early and building some authentic partnerships. Because people, as Anya mentioned, people are turning to influencers for recommendations. They do trust them, they do respect them. And what's interesting is that a lot of the strategy for bigger organizations and brands is not working with these big, huge influencers, the mega ones, it's working with the micro influencers and the nano influencers. And especially when it's people who share your values and are interested in your cause and kind of can form an authentic partnership, that level of influencer is a really key place to look. So looking at them as how can you build those creative collaborations. We can't treat them like a media inventory. It's not another channel to broadcast your message on. It's about building those partnerships and finding ways to work with them as storytellers to help tell your story to different audiences. But that's very exciting. And then the final thing that we're aware of on the landscape is that SMS is still growing and it's still untapped potential. And there's a huge opportunity there because people respond to it so quickly. And while we know that email is a really powerful tool for fundraising at the end of year giving or winter appeal giving, actually SMS can supplement that. So it's not about this graphic on the left of them being against each other. It's about how can they work together and how do we bring them together? Because actually the average response time for an SMS is 3 minutes. So in the difference to kind of having to wait for someone to open an email, and they may open it or they may not, we still see a really high open rate and a really high response rate for SMS. So it's thinking about how can you use that in addition to what you're already doing, and how do you build that list? And obviously the soft opt-in coming down the line is going to help with building that list as well. But there's huge potential there because the graph on the right shows that actually organizations have far fewer people on their list that they're sending messages to from SMS than they are with email. So there's a lot of potential there. Okay. So that's looking at what's going on now. It's really important when you're planning your winter appeal to look back as well and see what happened last year. So we always encourage partners to do a very thorough review and a wrap up, because what can feel like in January, like, oh, we don't need to mention that, we'll remember it. come now July and it's all a blur. So you want to make sure you've got a thorough review, but also to learn what data points you were able to track and what you weren't able to track, because sometimes we find that actually when we try and find the data, it wasn't all in the place that you expected it to be, and so you can't pull that complete picture together. But we're in a great position because last year we worked with these organisations, these incredible organisations, and we helped them raise over £650,000 across their winter appeals in the digital space. So that was working on their email programs, on some paid activity and the holistic digital experience. And that's across kind of animal charities, campaigning organisations, more traditional children's health charities, and then bringing those together. And so what we're delighted to be able to do today is share some of our headline learnings from what we found in 2024 when we put all of those reports together. The big things for us from 2024 was match giving drove record results. Obviously, we see that with Big Give raising a huge amount of money and growing year on year. But for our partners, it really was transformational for them. So match giving was something that we're going to be talking a lot about with partners this year. We saw that email is still working, but there's a huge variance between successful email programs and email programs that aren't hitting those targets. So we see that it's a top warm channel for a lot of charities. When you look at Open Creates, the other agency Open, they do a brilliant wrap up of their winter appeals as well. And they showed that email was really important and part of the mix. We found that the best performing campaigns had between 6 and 10 emails over their winter appeal, and that those were always that very plain text format and kind of making sure that you're picking the right days to contact people. So Anya's going to have some more tips for you about that. Again, the data from Open showed that cold audiences are expensive and unpredictable, which is true all year round and not just in 2024, but I think we're seeing that more and more. So according to the Open benchmarks, only 43% of their charities hit cold income targets. Like we say with digital, we're seeing CPMs rise. We're seeing it being a harder and harder channel to bring people in on a cold direct to donate asks. So particularly at this time of year, it's really important to make sure you've got that building your community so that you're not just talking to cold audiences. We found that when we were doing fundraising asks, making sure that we've got that specific tangible proposition really outperforms on the kind of broader, slightly woollier ones. We know it can be difficult to get that proposition, but if you can sweat that detail at the beginning of your campaign planning and really have that conversation about what is the message and the fundraising ask that we have here, that will really translate into a higher gift value from your supporters. And then finally, it's about making sure that you're thinking about the volume that you're talking to, the timing of your campaigns, as well as the creativity. You need to have a really strong creative proposition, but that alone isn't going to carry your fundraising at winter. You need to be really strategic about when are you talking to people and what are you talking, how many are you talking to and who are you segmenting and how do you make sure it's going to be really relevant to those people. So these are the things that our best performing campaigns all hit. And then we're thinking about how can we share more of that learning with you. So over to you, Anya.
Thanks, Ellie. Yes, we're going to go into some of the nitty gritty about things that we'd recommend doing. So this is where we get into specific advice for your Christmas appeals. And we're starting with the starting and closing strong. The beginning and end of your Christmas appeal can really make or break success. And last year we found that early emails, especially launch emails that included maybe a match funding ask as well, raised nearly 60% of total email income across the board with all our partners. So starting strong, letting people know this is a huge moment, a huge sincere ask can really help with kind of radical honesty that cuts through the noise. And as well as launching earlier than you think as well. So Giving Tuesday this year is in December. It's going to be a big flood of asks. Don't wait till then to launch. Launch a bit earlier. Show that this is something really urgent. Maybe send an SMS as part of your launch as a kind of a tactical message that can really cut through and helps you stand out before people are inundated. And at the other end of your appeal as well, having a deadline and a target can really help make a difference. Close out strong and don't be afraid to let people know how things are going. If you've got a target, that can be really helpful to say, this is how we're doing, this is where we've got to. For Surfers Against Sewage Big Give appeal last year that we worked on, we went kind of all out in our final email on the right here, bordering on a bit desperate, saying this is the state of things, this is where we're at, this is how much we still have to raise, with a really human email. And the results are really clear, again, across the board. 25% of campaign income came from these final emails where you could really have that honest cut through. So yeah, start and close super strong. Kickers are also super key and they can often outperform the original email. So these are emails where you resend your initial email. It's not too much extra work. You just kind of add a topper like this that we did for BirdLife to anyone that's not opened it already with a message to say, I hope you didn't miss this. It's super important. Make sure you spot this email. It can also really help with a crowded space. So again, if you've everyone's getting emails on Giving Tuesday, if you send a kicker a few days later and say, you know, your inbox is probably flooded, but I really didn't want you to miss this, and make sure they see this one, that can be a great tactic to employ. And for one partner we worked with last year, the kicker actually brought in triple the income of the launch email, so it can really help boost that emails that are working well. So always be ready with a kicker in your pocket to send out, as that can make a really big difference. Another 2024 lesson was being super direct, honest and raw in your emails. We're really certain this trend will continue with the context Ali shared at the start as well. This isn't an email that we worked on, but it's one I go back to time and time again. One from Charity Water, all about the CEO's experience of norovirus hitting his family. It's got a super powerful line in about relentless stomach bug turning our home into a round-the-clock cleaning operation. Soiled sheets, endless laundry, and constant sanitizing through it all. Clean water was our lifeline. And it's really that way to kind of bring home something, make it so personal and relatable. And it tapped into how people feel and made a charity, especially international development, that can feel quite far away, feel so much closer to home with this honest ask that made people really see why clean water is so important. And I think a key takeaway from this is if you are telling stories to support about the people you support, don't slip into formulaic process of what the problem was, how you solved it, why you need money. Just avoid that. People are really numb to that right now. We find storytelling, unless it's something a bit different, is really struggling to have cut through. So make it a story with a difference and purpose, whether that's in an email or in a video that you're making. Share an unusual perspective, an unexpected outcome, how the story made you feel if you're the one authoring it. Just do something that has a bit of cut through and be human. Tell the story in a way that you would tell your friends perhaps, and when you want to make them care, kind of don't fall into the formulas that we sometimes do with storytelling. And we also find that plain text emails like this one have a higher success rate than designed content. And going really extra plain like this one looked like a friend had just dropped into my inbox. I was like, oh, what does my colleague want? And it was Charity Water. They didn't have their logo on it. It was a really great kind of tactic to employ at key moments to get people to stop and look and pay attention. So this can be something to employ at key moments. But don't stop there as well when you're thinking about clarity. Something we saw overlooked time and time again last year was donate pages. So you can put all your efforts into amazing ads, emails, films, but if you're driving people to a donate page that flops and it doesn't convert people, it'll all have been for nothing. And just something that's really overlooked. So you want people, once they're on your page, just to get out of their way, let them donate. They've already said they want to donate, just make it as seamless as possible, remove any friction, because a poor user experience with too much copy, too many form fields, too much going on can really hurt your Christmas campaign. This example from Stoke Association we worked on before, 58% more donations came when removing all the copy below the arrow. And as a copywriter, it breaks my heart because you just want to write more and share more. But the fact is, clarity is key, and just make it as seamless as possible. Now is the time to start improving it as well. Don't wait until November when you think, oh, our donate page could be better. You should be employing A/B tests now, tweaking copy, images, format, see what increases the donate rate, make a page tailored to your Christmas campaign. And you might even use the festive period to test platforms like FundraiseUp. Ali's going to talk a bit about that later as well. But just thinking, you want to make sure that you've got the slickest page as possible, make sure you've got phone wallet payment set up, just make things that make the process much, much smoother, because that'll make life so much easier, and you'll be getting people converting at a much higher rate as well. So don't forget this key step. The next thing, a tactic that we've seen work really well at Christmas, is a parcels page. So turning your key asks into a really familiar shopping experience can help build that sense of tangibility for supporters, especially at Christmas when people are amidst a lot of Christmas shopping, present shopping. They're used to the checkout process. They want it to be super smooth, and creating a shop can really land well at Christmas time. They feel like they know where their money is going. This doesn't have to be a restricted ask. Careful wording can still make it say that this money could go towards buying something like this, but you can tailor, your different asks and have different values of level of prompts, and then include that in different segments of your emails as well. So if people have given a lot in the past, then give them parcel asks that are worth more, and you'll see the average gift increase. We did this with Children's Society last year and with Refuge as well. We created bespoke illustrations for their parcels page and used imagery and tested different things as well. We've really kind of tried to hone this and see how it can work as hard as possible. Just watch out as to not parcel up badly. Don't make a bad parcel. Make sure asks are directly related to solutions that you're proposing, not something that feels really far removed or shoehorned in just because you wanted a parcel. Work up items that make sure people can see that they're having impact and it's directly connected to what you're talking about. And even if you don't have a fully parceled up shop, tangible asks, again, can really make a difference. Make it clear where money could go and give people options to choose from as well can help boost the average gift. For one partner we worked with last year, average gifts went from about £40 for just a cash ask to over 60 when we introduced tangible examples and buttons. So it can really make all the difference in something that's worth doing. The next thing is getting personal at Christmas. The example of tailoring parcel prompts is great for doing smart segmentation that asks people to donate at a level that's most suitable for them and what they've done before. We don't recommend Forward Action ever going too big with your segmentation. It can be a lot of effort for not too much impact sometimes. But depending on the platform that you use, AI could also lend a helping hand. We worked with Médecins Sans Frontières this year on a digital strategy, including how AI could help them. And with their platform, Digital, they have this Winston AI tool built in, and it can really quickly write tailored sections of content. So you can upload your email, and then it can write tailored sections for different support groups for you to then refine and check that it all makes sense. But it can be a way to jump onto some personalization without too much extra effort. But also don't just be personal emails. Ads can be tailored to think about what's going on in the news, the day of the week, the weather, anything that makes it feel like, oh, this content is talking to me directly and it's relevant right now, can help you have cut through. This is an example from Planned Parenthood in the US, and it saw really good results just for mentioning the day of the week. It made all the difference. So it's really interesting that small tweaks of personalization can make, have a cut through again. This example, it shows how with segmentation, people that have donated £500 plus previously, they donated higher, they clicked higher. So it's really important to serve them the asks that are most appropriate for that. Don't be serving them a £5 ask if they've done lots for you before. Make sure it's really tailored to them. So it's an important way to be personal and tailored. Another key little thing we can do is that we saw work really well in 2024 as well is just saying thank you ahead of saying a lot of please. It's been shown that priming your supporters with a heartfelt thank you, as well as reminding them of the impact, celebrating that they're part of your movement, reminding them you're in this amazing charity and organisation, and then at Christmas they'll feel like, yes, this is the organisation I want to be supporting. It's a great way to warm them up. I love this simple example from Sense. I saved it because it's just such a sweet little email I got before the weekend once, just saying a little thank you, nothing else. And it really, warmed my heart and stood out to me, and just can be something that helps warm up your supporters before you dive into that Christmas moment. Make sure you kind of plan that into your wider campaign. Last couple of things, it's good to keep your asks really varied as well. So one direct donate ask after the other can become a bit intense. So we recommend sending more emails than you think. Ali mentioned about 6 to 10 emails being the highest performers overall last year. But include unusual asks, engagement things that give back to your supporters, something to brighten their day, teach them something new, make them feel better for being part of the community. We always see that action drives action. Don't be afraid to ask. And these are some examples we did last year. One thing with BirdLife was this interactive Bird's Journey Home. We were talking all about bird migration, emotive winter journeys, and you could follow this interactive kind of click-through journey to see what a bird faced as they went on thousands of miles journeys. And more varied emails always kind of saw better results. So think about how you can add different things into the mix. And lastly, not being afraid to be a bit disruptive. As we saw with the big brand budgets, they can do different things, they want to stand out, and you can as well. I think that can make such a big difference for charities too, especially in this crowded space. If you've got a brand that will let you do that, definitely think about how you can do something a bit different. If you've got a brand that won't let you, maybe even you can have a bigger impact because it'd be quite surprising. Think about how you could talk really boldly and have something surprising, unusual for your organisation, frame your work in a different way, captures a feeling or sentiment that's unique to 2025. I know Ali's been hunting for a partner to work with who goes boldly saying they want to publicly cancel any festive ad spend, and so they need everyone to donate because they're not going to get that reach. They're going to reinvest the money in their organisation. So if you fancy doing that, Ali would love to work with you. ChatGPT came up with some bold disruptive asks when I asked it to, some different things. But just thinking about how you can stand out in a crowded market and take some risks is super important too. So these are lots of things that we learned from 2024. But we're going to wrap it all up now and give you some clear things that you can go away and do straight away from this webinar to get winter ready. And we've got 6 key things to hone in on to help you get ahead of the game. And the first is to get your proposition sorted early. So again, Ali has mentioned this about targeted propositions working really well. And this means ironing out exactly what the message is at the heart of your Christmas campaign, not just the snappy tagline, the bit that is the bit front facing, but behind the scenes. What's the underlying heart of the need of your winter ask? These are some questions that we find really useful when we're running workshops with partners to unpack this and unpack their theory of change, the message that will get people donating, before we then tie it up nicely with a creative bow. But in particular, kind of what is money needed for is something that partners can struggle to answer when time is really tight. When you're doing that in November, it's all a bit difficult to get all the teams together. So start to figure this out now. Why do you need funding this Christmas? It doesn't have to be a restricted ask. Again, it can just be examples of where the money is needed or how you talk about that, how you bring that to life, being really honest with supporters about what's going on. These are kind of key questions to start thinking about. And it's a good time to kind of think about how you incorporate the season too, how you make it timely. These are a couple of examples we worked on where for Surfers Against Sewage and Santa don't really go well together. So we had to think differently about what winter looks like, winter storms, community support, talked about the wave of action for their Big Give appeal. And with Ronald McDonald House Charity, we could lean much more into the Christmas feeling as well, with a proposition about darkness that comes with a sick child in hospital and for their family, and how supporters can bring the light. So it's really thinking about the behind the scenes nuts and bolts of that message, and then how you tie it up nicely creatively. You should really start doing that now. Don't leave it to the last minute. The second thing, if you ever really needed a reason to hope and feel like everything wasn't doom and gloom, the Big Give Match Fund Christmas appeal last year is just that. Last year it raised £44.7 million for 1,267 charities, which was a 35% increase from the year before, which is very exciting. There's a number that's improving, which is always lovely to see. Applications for their Christmas challenge are closed this year, but if you've already applied, that's amazing, great news. But it doesn't mean you can't look for match funding opportunities from other places. Any major donors you work with who'd be happy to donate in a match funding way, other funds you worked with before, anything that can give your Christmas appeal a massive boost, you should be looking to kind of line up now. It's hugely motivating to have a target, a deadline, an opportunity to double donations. So yeah, really seriously consider trying to line this up, and have a narrative that helps stand out with your match funding too. It's not, lots of people are doing this now, so think, what's the story you can tell? What's the stake? Why are you raising this money? Why now? We've worked with Service Against Surge again on lots of Big Give appeals, and always created a bespoke narrative to make sure this one stands out and you realise why in 2025 this is so key to do. And then number 3 is community. So Service Against Surge raising lots of money at Big Give appeals. They didn't get there without a community. So firing up your community before Christmas is super key. And not just relying on email for this either. Make a space to bring people in even closer. So by the time you're asking for donations at Christmas, people feel like they're a core member of your movement. WhatsApp has been an amazing place to do this with Dignity in Dying. And we've tailored lots of content for that platform, like quickfire polls and videos are super easy to do, bringing people much, much closer into their cause, create that sense of a movement, which has really helped then have people ready to act when the time comes. And Service Against Surge as well do an amazing job of this. They've got so many actions to their communities to take year round, petitions, messages to politicians, beach cleans, paddle out protests. All that helps build a relationship so that by the time it comes around to Christmas, people are part of your community, they feel ready to be asked to help. So don't just do nothing and then suddenly ask lots at Christmas. Make sure you're building that sense of community right now ahead of time. And similarly, kind of connecting with a younger audience too, building your profile with younger audiences. They have in the past been one of the most generous audiences. That's dipped a little bit, but it can be a self-fulfilling prophecy that you don't see younger audiences respond to traditional campaigns, you don't get results, you kind of write them off. But really, they're an untapped resource and we need to be meeting them where they're at. Building your profile on TikTok, thinking about how you work with influencers around Christmas, helping build that story in multiple places, and make sure that you're tapping into this amazing audience. And also with building communities, soft opt-in is a huge opportunity as well. And I'll be handing over back to Ali to talk that through and the rest of our key tips to get ready.
Thank you. So yes, home straight, we've got 3 more tips for what you should be doing now. But obviously, I'm pretty sure everyone on this call is aware about the soft opt-in changes coming down the line. If you want to find out more information, we have a handy guide that is on our website that you can download to kind of what that means to you, and another checklist for how to prepare for it. We don't know when that's going to happen, so it's quite hard to say what the impact on winter is going to be. But the chances are it will have been enacted and come to law by winter. So thinking about kind of how do you make sure that it's giving you a better chance for the people that you talk to this year to continue to be longer term supporters, because if you've got a soft opt-in rate for cash donors or people donating on your website, then you're going to be able to continue to build that relationship. And so it kind of can shift whether that's an area that you focus on as well. So like I say, something to be thinking about this year and how you build your community. And if it's something that comes in earlier, it's definitely a chance to build your email list, bring a few more thousand people onto your file so that you've got more people to talk to around those key dates. Next up, again, influencers, making sure you're lining up your influencer partners. Possibly not going to be Meryl Streep unless you've got some very, very well connected people in your organization. But actually, that doesn't matter because, like I say, you want to be reaching people who have an authentic connection to your cause, or who are able to talk with conviction and excitement about the work you're doing, and talking to a small number of people. So people who are reaching 10,000 to 100,000 followers are brilliant because those people really trust those influencers and think of them as like a friend and a peer. So being able to reach those people is brilliant. So now is the time to be shortlisting the influencers you want to work with and thinking about how you best reach them. There's a number of partners that we work with who are specialists at reaching influencers, and we're working with them more and more on partnerships to make sure that we're bringing that element into our projects. But it's also thinking about doing it now so that you can work with those influencers to create what those campaign moments look like and giving them opportunities to get behind the scenes with you, to create content. You can't necessarily give freebies that they're going to be unboxing, but you can give them access to expertise. So actually, perhaps something they'd love to do is to be able to do some content with you, with some of your experts, with your chief exec, someone to do a really serious conversation with them and kind of bringing that information. So you can, the value you have is the information and the hope that you can bring and the expertise. So So making sure you're building those partnerships early and thinking about how to really embed that within your Christmas planning. Next up, Anya's mentioned this, but it's optimizing the donation journey. We get to spend so much time thinking about the creative idea, and your teams, if you are working in an organization that has a kind of DM team as well, they'll be working on their appeal, and maybe you're doing an integrated appeal and you're bringing in that, but we often overlook the donation page. And often it's because like it is set up, we can't go through a procurement process to set up a new donation page. It's going to be a huge tech problem. Christmas is a really great time just to test different platforms. If you can get that signed off, if you have a donation page that you suspect is underperforming, there are platforms out there. So there's FundraiseUp, which is a US-based one, which is a brilliant donation platform. There's a new one coming into the market, which is Our Goods, which is a European equivalent. So if your organization is a bit funny about American data protection things, Our Goods is something to look at. And they can just set up really well optimized donation forms for you. So if you have any issues with your donation pages, I'd really advocate for seeing if you can just test a different platform, because you're going to have a higher volume of traffic. That means that you can start learning and getting those learnings and set that up for future years as well. And you mentioned it, but like making sure you've got phone wallet payments. Such a high percentage of traffic comes to your website on mobile. Been saying that for a decade now. It's still true. It's very true. But we see consistently lower donation value from mobile donation payments than from desktop. So it's something to think about of like, how can you optimize that mobile journey to increase the value of those gifts? Because if we see fewer people are giving, but they're giving more, it's really important to think about what can you be doing with your donation journey to push that prompt value up. So there's a lot of things to think about. It's not just the donation page, it's the whole journey, but there's definitely some things to be testing there. And now you've got kind of 3 or 4 months to get everything in place. So there should be enough time to set some of those tests up or set some of those optimizations in place. And the final thing is to make sure you're planning your campaign moments. And I've seen we've already had a couple of questions about this kind of 6 to 10 emails. Is that too much? Is that not enough? When do we send them? So this is a very hasty calendar of November, December 2025. There's an orange box here, which I reckon is actually the sweet spot for starting campaigns. If I was planning a campaign this year, that's when I would be wanting to look at going out to it. So when the 26th, 27th, 28th, 29th box of November, that is going to be all about Black Friday and so it's influenced by Thanksgiving. That is when we're going to see a lot of Black Friday sales happening. We've seen that year on year, those Black Friday sales come earlier and they start talking about it earlier, which I think gives us a license also to start talking about things a bit earlier and responding to that. We've got Giving Tuesday on Tuesday, the 2nd of December. So that is going to be in December. It's nice when that is in November because it takes those two big moments apart a little bit, because Giving Tuesday is often a high point of giving as well as just in the lead up to Christmas, but they're going to be quite close together. So it's worth thinking about how you factor that in. And that is also the beginning of the Big Give Week. So if you have been successful in your application for the Big Give Week, that is going to be a period of high email communications. And as Anya said, it's brilliant to be able to give updates on your targets, let people know how you're doing, make it feel like a real community and a collective. Historically, the Friday before people break up for Christmas is a really big day of giving. And so it's quite often a payday for people. So that's the 19th of December is a date that I would be looking to make sure you're reaching out to people. It can also be a good one back in the old days when people were in the office more, but sending like an SMS at that point at like 6 o'clock in the evening when people might be feeling like they're in the pub, they're having a little bit of a fun time, and it's a nice place where people are a bit more warmed up to give. It's actually a good time to do that. The 23rd is probably likely to be the last day that people are online a lot before Christmas. So that's a good date. Christmas Eve is another cracking one. Everyone is online on Boxing Day, and charities don't always think to communicate with people on Boxing Day. We know that all of the shops are going to be doing that with sales, but actually everyone's scrolling on their phone, they're tired, they're looking for some distraction. Is there a way of bringing a bit of levity maybe into your campaign, but bringing that in there? And then obviously just before the end of the year, where you can be talking about what's going to happen next year and how to make it a huge success. So there's so many moments that you can be reaching out to people. And all of those things are about where they are and what they're doing. It's not about your organization. It's just about being there and prompting them and reminding them. So these don't have to be long case study emails. They can just be updates on the campaign and the momentum. So that's the winter appeal moments. But before that, you've got September and October to be really building those communities as well. So thinking about what can you be doing to engage people, as Anya said, warming them up, showing the value of your brand, making sure that they feel a lot of love towards you, so that when those harder fundraising asks come in a quicker succession, they're warmed up for it as well, and you've got some goodwill. So this is your action plan. We've got to define that proposition, Secure a match gift if possible. That's a brilliant thing to do. I think in America, they've been doing match giving for a long time. And now you have like 6-time match gift, because a match gift alone isn't enough to drive people to give. They're always having to outperform that. But like, there's definitely a lot to be said for bringing that, because it brings that urgency and that sense of collective action, which is what we talked about as that hopeful thing. Is it's not just me making a donation. It's that if everyone donates now, that will unlock this bigger pool of funding for the organization. So it's the urgency, but it's also the collective social proof. It's building your community to make sure you've got lots of people that are warmed and you're ready to talk to. Make sure you've got those influencer partners lined up. Again, maybe testing some of that before the winter appeal moment. So you've already started talking to those people and their supporters and their followers. Making sure your donation page is optimized and that you've got tests lined up to do in that early part of the campaign. So if you were to start in kind of the 16th of November that week, you'd want to be testing some key propositions on your donate page for the first few weeks, so that then you can, when you get to the big moments of Giving Tuesday and Christmas, you've already got your kind of successful bankers in the bank and you can roll out with those. And that's the campaign timing. Okay, that's things to get started with. So wrapping up very quickly, what we would love you to take away from this is to make sure that you're planning like it's already November. There's a lot to do. There's things to be happening. You've got plenty of time, but there's no time to waste. So make sure that you are testing what works and dropping what doesn't. We know that there's some assumptions that we'll take into this. When you're thinking about those plans, work out what those assumptions are and do they need to be tested again? Is there something that we need to just validate? Because behaviors online are changing so much and so frequently. We need to make sure that we're just sense checking that before rolling out with bigger tests. And the number one thing that we think is to make sure that this year, more than ever, you are being bold, you are being human, and you are bringing hope and acting as a beacon of hope for the community of your supporters. And how we do that, I think, is, if we move on, it's bringing that radical relatability. It's not about big brand propositions. It's not about shiny marketing. It's about being really authentic. It's building that trust. It's showing user-generated content. It's finding ways to really break down the barriers between your supporters and who you are and what you're doing. It's making sure you're bringing that optimism to counter the doom and the gloom out there. And it's making sure that you're going beyond digital and thinking outside of what are people doing when they're looking at this and where are they in their lives? How can we reach them in different places? And that's what gets us excited about Christmas.
Lovely. Thank you so much, both. That was a real whistle-stop tour. I do feel distinctly more Christmassy now than I did at the beginning of this webinar, so thank you. We got loads of questions. Thank you everyone who submitted them. If you have any more questions, feel free to still send them through, and we will try and answer them in the write-up of the webinar and share it all with you. We only have time for a couple of questions, I'm afraid. So I'm just going to cherry pick a couple. Usually when we do webinars like this, people are surprised when we say that sending lots of emails is a good thing and we see great results from that. So you mentioned in your presentation that the best performing campaigns that we saw sent about between 6 to 10 emails each. So we had a couple of questions around that. Somebody was asking if all of these were sent as part of a Christmas campaign, and what was the spacing between them? How many had a direct ask? I know it varied slightly between campaigns, but can you give us a bit of a kind of general answer?
Yeah, so they would all be part of the winter appeal, which would start from mid-November, kind of, or late November through to the end of December. Sometimes organizations run their winter appeal through to mid-January as well, just to extend that potential window that you can be talking to people. They would not all have a direct ask in. And actually, we find if you can build that donation journey in, that if you can ask people to do something else and then put the donate ask after that action, that actually often generates a really high response rate as well, and sometimes higher than a direct ask. But we want to make sure we're mixing it up. But yes, they would all be with a fundraising view or a fundraising lens, and making sure. And sometimes that can be as many as sending 3 in a week or 4 in a week. Around a big give week, we'll be sending a high volume of emails in that week. You can let people know that this is a short time thing and we're doing this because it's essential to our organization, and that's kind of thing, kind of asking for a bit of forgiveness when you do that as well, and being realistic and direct about that. But yeah, it's I think if you are signed up to any mailing lists from any other brands where you've bought something online and you get a high volume of emails, it's not necessarily like, it's not the worst thing in the world, and people can unsubscribe. And if they unsubscribe, it's always worth monitoring unsubscribe versus response rate, but we tend to find that the volume of responses outweighs the unsubscribes. Anya, is there anything you'd add to that?
I think that partly answers the next question as well, around how sending lots of emails fares over multiple years, if we have any data that kind of shows that it might raise a lot of money initially, but then people actually unsubscribe. But actually we find that it's the opposite is true, really.
Yeah, I think people are used to it within, like, organizations that have this as their strategy, do it year on year and do it because it continues to generate those results. It is worthwhile to do. And like we say, it's like about engaging people outside at that time and saying it's not going to be 12 months where we're going to do this, but this is the biggest time of fundraising for us. And I think this year there's an opportunity to say, like, Christmas is always an important time for fundraising for us, but this year more than ever. And you can be direct and realistic. And we find that emails that come from the finance director actually perform really well. So giving that kind of transparency about, like, this is more important than ever. So bear with us, we're going to do this, but we'll try and make it fun.
Great. I know that lots of charities are interested in Big Give. I mean, they had like some record results and numbers of participation last year. And somebody's asking, for charities that take part in the Big Give, how would you recommend balancing that campaign with your own Christmas campaign?
I think it can be, at the heart of your Christmas campaign. I think lots of organizations that we've worked with, that has been their Christmas moment, and it can raise so much money. And sending 7 emails in 7 days can seem like a lot, but just to really focus in, I think it really helps supporters realize, like, this is a key urgent moment. This is something amazing. Neither should cannibalize each other. Like, your match funding moment, Big Give moment should be thought of as part of your Christmas campaign, and a big thing to lead up to, and to tell people that you've got this time-bound moment where you're hoping to raise the majority of your target, probably, but make sure it's really core part of it. Sometimes we've seen Big Give appeals is kind of on the periphery and people don't see what a huge opportunity it is, but make sure it feels like the whole organization's behind it. You're posting about it on every channel you have, you're talking about it in all your emails, you're making the song and dance of it that it is and the opportunity that it is. And don't feel like it's separate to your Christmas campaign. It's at the heart of it. And as the stats showed last year, the incredible response that people gave to Big Give in 2024, hopefully it'll increase again this year. So just harness it, make it part of Christmas, weave in your message. And don't undersell it, because it can be such a big thing. They don't need to cannibalize each other. They can really support each other together, I think, is a key thing.
Exactly right. I'll squeeze in just one final question, because I know that this is something that we've been doing more of recently as well. It's about working with influencers, and you pulled that out as a kind of trend and something for people to watch out for in the coming year. Somebody's asking what a budget would look like for working with an influencer. And I feel like this is the question. The answer is, how long is a piece of string? But would you mind sharing what we've seen?
Yes, so it can really depend on the audience side, platform engagement rate. Sometimes we've seen organizations, they have their own relationships and it's a free thing to do, but we're seeing more and more that people shouldn't be afraid to think about paying influencers. They're not the same as a celebrity. They do this as a living. That is their whole life. It's like how you'd pay a videographer to do work for you. This is how they pay their bills. It's really important to have that, rationality for paying influencers. And we've seen kind of differences. Nano influencers could start from kind of £50 for a post to more like £1,000 for someone with 100k following. But it's really, you want to start this conversation, see where you can land, talk about different budgets, and just not be afraid to try it and to see what you could get. Hopefully that gives you an idea of the sense of budget and scale. But it's a great question that someone is happy to do that. We're finding that it's a conversation to have, but we really feel like that's such a huge opportunity and platform to tap into. So yes, hopefully that gives a sense of scale.
And I think thinking about who are the influencers that you want to build longer term partnerships with, because that's when it becomes really effective as well, because the supporters know that that's kind of part of their identity as well. And the people that we support, the charities that we support, are part of our values and our identity. So you want someone who's going to be proud to champion you and think, so when you're talking to them, it's not just about like, what's the one winter post or Christmas post? It's like, how can we work with you over the next year, and thinking about that. And then that also becomes a more sustainable relationship for the influencer. So you may get more value. Absolutely.
Thank you so much, both. Thank you, everyone, for joining. As I said, keep sending through your questions. If you have any that we didn't get to, we'll try and write everything up and share the write-up and the recording with you soon. If any of this sparked any ideas, if you'd like to chat to us about your appeals, if there's anything else that you want to chat to us about, get in touch. I just shared our email here with you all in the chat. And thank you. Here's to a very, very successful Christmas appeal season. I do feel it's properly started now, and enjoy the rest of your days. Bye all.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, everyone.